It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Well, hello there. Heidi, ho there. Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me. As always, Douglas Coleman, how are you? Thank you for joining us. Nice to have you with us. Tracy McLaughlin is here today. Tracy is one of the nation's top real estate brokers, entrepreneur, and she's an author of a new book called Real Estate Rescue. She has been the #1 producer in residential sales in Marin County, California every year since 2005. That's a pretty impressive credential. We talk about how you can maximize your return on your sale of your house and what you can do to make it look its absolute best with very little money. It's all about staging and aesthetics and photo op, basically. Make your house sparkle and shine, and people will buy, and you'll get maximum dollar for it. She will be up, and then after the interview, we've got our Music Submit playlist. Thank you very much to everybody who has been submitting on Music Submit. We're getting lots of great music, and we're very happy to play it. We've got 2 tracks to play for you today. The first one is called Carousel by Kevin Conaway. And the second one is called Nothing Without You by Jeremy Harry Harris. So we've got lots to get to. We will be right back with Tracy McLaughlin.
Hurry, Bullwinkle! The show's about to start!
I'm coming as fast as I can.
And now...
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat.
Again?
Nothing up my sleeve. Presto! Ooh, don't know my own strength.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
All right, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Tracy McLaughlin. Hey, Tracy, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
Doing very well, thank you. This is a first for our show. We've never actually had a real estate broker on, but I'm glad that you're on because I think when people go to sell their house or looking to buy a house, I mean, it's something everybody can relate to. And I think that reading through your bio, you've got a very impressive bio and probably some good information for people who may be entering into the real estate market, either as a buyer or a seller. The first question I did want to ask you is, what is the market at this point? Has COVID affected it at all?
Yes, it's amazing how immediate the effect has been as well. I mean, I prognosticated that there might be a bit of an exodus out of cities, out of more dense metropolitan areas, vertical lifestyles.
Right.
When we all first went into shelter in place, which, if you can believe it or not, was like March 9th in California. But that is actually what is occurring, and it's been with very rapid fire decision making. I mean, normally if a family or a couple says, gosh, I'm so tethered to the city that I've loved living in for years, it takes a long time to make a decision to leave that lifestyle and go out to the suburbs. COVID, however, has really accelerated that. People are just almost in a kind of desperate way. I've got to get out of here, especially people that have been homeschooling children and working out of home and Zoom and Skype and having no outdoor space that's immediately accessible. So we are seeing just a migration out of cities, New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and people going to places like, Aspen, Colorado, the wine country, beach communities, Malibu, just for breathing room. So yes, it's been a very quick and very immediate impact on our business.
I guess, how has it affected your business in the sense that you're getting lots of buyers that want to buy in the suburbs, but everybody is selling that's in the city? Is that how it's going for you?
Yes. Well, yeah, it's been very interesting to watch. So a lot of the migration of the buyers is mostly from San Francisco to my market is Marin County over the Golden Gate Bridge. And what we're seeing, I mean, listen, this is great for our business, right? There's very high, very fast move, high volume of deals, fast moving.
Right.
We're also seeing those sellers being a little bit opportunistic and not happy with just record-breaking prices, but pushing those record-breaking prices and being a little bit greedy. I mean, it's amazing. I thought when COVID first started, I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be another 9/11 or another 2008-9, banking crisis. I kind of prepared myself for the worst in terms of the effect of the economy on the economy being shut down and how that would ultimately affect real estate. What I'm seeing is that the people that have money, the people that are not in service-oriented jobs right now, that saved for a rainy day or have been able to bridge their business over through these months, they are still very, qualified buyers, and they're making big money decisions. And so it's been very interesting to watch.
Now, New York and San Francisco, correct me if I'm wrong, are the most expensive real estates in the United States? Maybe pending Hawaii, but for the 48 states?
No, that's correct. Actually, San Francisco has been the most expensive real estate market in the country. It superseded New York, I believe, about a year and a half, 2 years ago. Was
San Francisco ever affordable? It seems to me it was in like the 70s or something, but then after that it just took off, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been a desirable place. If you think about San Francisco, it's a very, very small city geographically, right? I mean, it's tiny compared to certainly New York, Boston. There's no place for it to spread out because it's surrounded by water and then there's a lot of protected open space in the Bay Area. So it's a small city geographically. It's always been expensive, but it became hyper expensive as a result of the .com era. I mean, all of the tech the quarter of tech has started down at Stanford and Palo Alto, but it migrated north, and all sorts of tech companies have opened offices in San Francisco, and it just those salaries that the engineers are being paid and things has really, really pushed housing prices in San Francisco.
So if
very, very expensive place to live. That may be changing though.
Well,
going on.
Let's just do it as an example, because I think a lot of people like to hear numbers and in their own head, then they can decide if it's something that they can do. If somebody wants to buy, let's just say, a one-bedroom condo in a reasonably decent area in San Francisco, what is the minimum that you're going to need to do that?
Well, it's about anywhere on the low end from $1,200 a foot up to $2,200 a foot now. So if you do the math, it just depends on what you're buying. But one bedroom condo at 15, you're spending, between $1.2 million and $1.5 million if you're in a desirable area. I mean, that's not the most expensive. It can get even far more expensive than that if you're in some of these, buildings with doormen and security, underground parking. But yeah, it's been, $1,000 to $2,200 a foot is a really good range to use for the city.
So $1 million is not going to get you that much. You might be able to get something.
It's not.
Yeah. But all right. Well, I guess I'm out of that. I guess I'm not going there. And then rent. I mean, if you're going to rent, you're looking at what? At least $3,000 a month to rent something in San Francisco.
Even more than that.
Even more than that. Okay.
I mean, the real low end of the spectrum for rent in San Francisco is know that the city is rent controlled, right? So if you've been in your apartment for a long time, you're a pretty lucky guy or gal if you get to stay there, at $3,000 or $4,000 a month. A nice apartment in San Francisco is between $5,000 and $12,000 a month.
Oh.
Yeah, it's very expensive. I mean, kids getting out of college who go to San Francisco, they have 3 or 4 roommates and they're all paying, $2,500 a month to rent these, old flats, and they're all sharing bedrooms. I mean, it's a very challenging city for kids getting out of college unless they come out of there with just, incredible jobs right out of the gate. So,
or very rich parents.
Correct. True.
We've all seen the problems, particularly in San Francisco and in LA, with the homeless crisis. Do you think the fact that it costs $5,000 for an apartment is contributing to that?
I don't think that's the exact reason. No, I think the homeless in San Francisco, and I've mentioned to quite a few people are doing interviews and things that I think honestly that the homeless is almost as much a part of the exodus out of San Francisco and other big metropolitan areas right now as the COVID is. And that's because, listen, the sights and sounds of the city, the hustle bustle, all the things that distract us from homelessness or being exposed to that on a regular basis, those things are all gone now. I mean, when you've got quiet city streets and nobody coming and going out of buildings and tents lined up and down those streets that, used to play host to beautiful small shops and restaurants, it's just a visual, it's so visually apparent now compared to even what it was like a year ago in the city. It's very, very sad to watch. And so I think that the homelessness, that issue has been just, and I'm not a political person, but in San Francisco, it's a very, very liberal city. And there's been a great deal of deferential treatment given to the homeless. It's been a very welcoming city. And it really gets into issues of not enough police enforcement and not enough police officers for the amount of people that are literally living on the streets. So, it should be a solvable problem, but for some reason, it's been unsolvable to date. And I think that's just because of the welcome nature of San Francisco. If you look back on the city's history, Gold Rush, it's always welcomed the new, right? The peace marches in the 1960s. There's always been this very liberal element that's been very welcoming. And unfortunately, it's just, it's the homeless issue there has become very, very pervasive. So.
Well, perhaps San Francisco is just full, like you said, with the people being welcome to come. And also, I think the weather has something to do with it, because you don't see the big tent cities like that in places like New York and Boston and Detroit, where it gets 20 below zero in the winter. But San Francisco is always kind of more moderate in its temperature. I know it's a big problem, but the contrast is interesting to me, because on the one hand, you've got this real problem with a lot of homeless in San Francisco on the streets that we've all seen. And then on the other end of the spectrum, like you said, it's $5,000 to rent an apartment. So there's a very wide gap there. And it just makes me feel like if there was more affordable housing, that perhaps the homeless problem would be less severe. But I don't know. I'm not a politician either, so I'm just making a speculation on that one.
Yeah, I'm hoping that gets better for San Francisco. It's been such an iconic city for so many years around the world, with really playing host to tourism being one of its biggest, driving forces for success. And, they're going to have to address that problem if the tourism's still going to continue at the levels that it has over the years. So,
yes, I would agree. Let's talk a little bit about your book. You've got a book called Real Estate Rescue, and the subtitle is How America Leaves Billions Behind in Residential Real Estate and How to Maximize Your Home's Value. Now, I got into a discussion with somebody once a few years ago when I was selling my condo in Las Vegas. Does a home show better when it's completely empty or if it's furnished?
If it's furnished, as long as the furniture is current with what people want to buy today. No matter what, it's always better to furnish a house. So even if you have very dated furniture, and you can maybe buy a couple new pillows or fluff it up a bit, it's better. It's very counterintuitive, but homes actually look much larger when they're furnished. When you take all the furniture out and there's really no dimension going on or perspective, with furniture or showing people how to live in a room, it tends to look smaller and it's very vacant, and it's very hard to emotively connect for a buyer in an empty space. In our market, we hardly ever see a vacant home sold in any price range. And I always advise my sellers, even if you have to take out a quick, small loan, please stage your house unless you have just recently furnished it. We have about 50 photos and video content to tell the world about our homes. Everything's being done online. And, I always say to people, everybody has ADD today, right? You click on a listing,
Yeah.
you're there for 3 or 4 photos. And if it's not captivating you and drawing you in, you're just on to the next listing. So we have to grab people very immediately, get their attention, pull them in. And really how that's done with great marketing is just beautiful photography. That is what sells houses right now. What creates beautiful photography? Well, that's contrast in living spaces with white walls, gray sofas, white rugs under the gray sofas, darker floors under the white rugs. All of that contrast in color and tonality and crispness of design and decor is really what allows us to sell homes for higher prices.
Okay. Because I have seen some great listings with great photos, minimal amount of furniture. And I've also seen some listings that were just what I thought were a disaster. I mean, kids' toys strewn about everywhere and clutter and just boxes stacked up. And obviously you don't want it to look like that, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's so interesting to me. Like, I spent a lot of time in Aspen, Colorado, and, Aspen it's one of the country's, if not most expensive real estate market in terms of secondary market. It's very, very expensive. And I remember the first time I was looking for a house, I walked in, they don't do a lot of staging there. Aspen sells, very, very high-end homes. But I walked in and, the guy's ski passes from the 1970s, 73, 74. I got completely distracted looking at his old ski passes from Ajax. And then I think he had just showered, so there was steam on the shower door. I saw all the toiletries. The bed was unmade. I thought, oh my God, I can't get out of here fast enough. It was probably a nice house, but the reality is we get so distracted by these personal elements that you can never absorb the enjoyment of a space or imagine yourself there if it's not completely neutralized. And neutralized means no toiletries on the, nothing personal hanging around. Get your wedding photos down. You don't want people looking at your wedding photos. You want them looking at the spaces and how the house flows and how you would live there and how you would entertain there. And people don't have a lot of imagination. You really have to show them how that works through being a great listing agent. So
I know it changes from season to season. What is the most in-demand feature of a home at this point? I mean, it used to be stainless appliances. It used to be Corian countertops. It used to be open concept. What is it now?
It's still the open concept.
Okay.
That is 99.5%. In fact, I just got off the phone with a new buyer before I'm speaking to you. And it's the same thing with all of the young buyers buying up into markets. It's a big open rectangle with and the finishes are what's still very popular are white kitchens, white marble counters, or if you have to use Corian or a knockoff product and it's not marble, that's fine. But white still really sells in a kitchen very well. Now it's gold and brass hardware and gold lighting, to accent it or to make it seem fresh. But it's that kitchen with a bar counter seating area, then a large rectangular open dining area, and then a family room right after that that's got an L sectional with a TV. And that is really how we live today. I know that the trending for that really started after our mortgage banking crisis back in 08, 09, when people were shrinking down out of huge houses and saying, you know what, we don't really need more than a perfect rectangle with high ceilings to enjoy our family. So and that's still pervasive 10 years later.
What's interesting is that if you go way back, like, 150 years into some of those old Victorians, which San Francisco has lots of, they used to put the kitchen in the basement. And one of the reasons was, well, number one, they had servants. So they put the servants downstairs. But the other reason was that they didn't want the smell of food to pervade through the whole house. And I always thought that was interesting because with the open concept, with the kitchen as the sort of centerpiece of the house, if you're cooking in there, it tends to flow through the house unless you've got a really good ventilation system. But I've seen a lot of these with like you were talking about, with the island sort of in the middle, and they'll have the cooktop right on the island, with no ventilation at all. And I just think if you're cooking something, you're frying something, you're going to stink up the whole house with the food.
Yeah, isn't that funny? I happen to sell Tyler Florence's house. He's a well-known chef who's written a lot of books. He's on TV shows. And when I went to sell Tyler's house, there was no exhaust system in the kitchen at all. There was no pop-up fan right out of the cooktop. There was nothing dropping down. And I said, Tyler, where's the exhaust system? And he had a very open concept in a little town called Mill Valley in Marin. And he said, Tracy, actually those fans really disturb the flavors in the food. I don't exhaust any of the food that I cook. I thought, are you kidding me? So exactly what you're saying. I mean, just think about it. We tried it. We thought that if you were living in the high end back in the day, servants, chefs, you didn't want to see any evidence of that. Now it is literally the centerpiece of our lives, right? When we have people over, all we want them to do is sit at the kitchen island and talk to us while we're cooking for them and drinking wine, and we're back and forth. It's really incredible. It's a complete 180 from the turn of the century when you're right about Victorians where, compartmentalized spaces and formal rooms and welcome you into the vestibule, So it's all those homes are being repurposed now for the way we live.
Okay, so that's one thing. What else? What else is another?
Yeah, so certainly that's so in demand right now. The point of the book that I wrote was I watched people. I've been in the business about 21 years, and I'm number 20 in the U.S. right now. So I've been at this for a long time and consistently ranked in the very top of people in the country. And I have watched the same movie over and over, people leaving money on the table. And the problem is, as buyers and sellers, they don't know enough to know what they left on the table. They just make these blanket assumptions like, oh, geez, I guess the market just wasn't great. Or, oh, yeah, I guess there's just too many homes for sale on my street, and that's why mine didn't sell well. No one really knows enough to know what happened. So I've watched this over and over during the years, and I thought I'm going to put a book together that tells people what not to do and what to do so that there's no more mistakes made. I mean, 40% of America's wealth is tied up in its principal residence. It's most of our largest investment is our homes. Right. And yet the way we go about selling them is just, there's not a lot of thought put into it. Aunt Eloise just got a real estate license, and I kind of owe Aunt Eloise a favor. I think I'll call her to list my house. We wouldn't do that with our money managers, our stockbrokers, our doctors, our lawyers, but we do it with real estate professionals because it's an emotional business, and it doesn't have quite the level of, obviously, education and regulatory conditions that other businesses do. So anyway, the book really, you're asking about other features that really sell. The combination of staging, styling, and getting the colors and the palette right for your home are so critical. Okay. If you open websites like Houzz or Pinterest right now, or you pick up Elle Decor or Architectural Digest, you can see what is trending. And that is what, I don't care what budget you have, there's always money or a loan to take out to make your home more valuable so that you're maximizing your equity. Even in very slow-moving markets, I did research all over the country about these subjects. So right now it's white walls, it's floors that are, hardwood flooring that's wide planked, 5.5-inch oak floors. It's very simple, more contemporary furniture, that's very relaxed. It's great wall coverings in powder rooms. Powder rooms are still a great place to express yourself and have fun. And other kind of ego rooms, so people would tend to go a little bit crazier in their powder rooms. But all people have to do is look at those magazines and try to make their home look as close to those as they can when they go to sell it. Even if it's dated, you can still change the wall color. You can still stain your older hardwood floors to kind of smoke and mirror them. You can still rent furniture from Court Furniture Rental or whoever the rental agency is for very little money and make your house look new just with these simple cosmetic things.
What about the basements? And when I was growing up, that was the big sort of place for the kids or for the family. I grew up in Boston, so every house in New England had a basement. And that was the big deal back then, was to finish your basement. And of course, in the 70s, we had that horrible wood panel that everybody used. But the room was like a nice room. That was like the family room or the where the people would put the TV down there. What do you do with the basement these days?
You know, I still think they're a really great place. I call them the secondary family room. But, you know, when families are growing, right, and the children hit around 10, 11, 12 years old, all of a sudden they're migrating away from the kitchen island and they want their own space. They want to go play Nintendo or whatever they're doing now, right?
Yeah.
So I find a lot of value in that secondary public space, even if it's windowless, where you can have a big flat screen, where you can go down and play games, or you can play ping pong or pool or whatever you want to put down there. So there's still a lot of value to those. If somebody's not having children that are getting older and they have that secondary space, we're really hyper-focused right now because of COVID on home offices that have privacy. You know, these Zoom calls and Skype calls, I mean, everyone's on them. Everyone's doing yoga on Zoom. Everyone's working out on Zoom.
Yeah.
So having a room that's separate where you're not hearing the rest of your family or exposed to the rest of your family when you're trying to conduct business, that's easily converted to that if you don't already have a home office. So
I guess the last thing before we wrap this up is what about the home theater? That seemed to be real big at one point.
You know, it's kind of trended out. If you think about it, I think we're all working so hard that we fall into bed with our laptops. We're answering emails, and then we say, oh, what's going on Netflix? So that's become our home theater, our laps at night in bed with our laptops or, you know,
or phone.
Watching TV. But, yeah, I'm usually right now I'm taking home theaters. I just took one out of a home that I'll be listing. That space is much better utilized in other ways that people are using public spaces right now. Than those chairs are quite large. They take up a lot of room. They swivel around. You need a lot of space for theater chairs and things. And I just think we're just so, you know, we're moving around with our laptops now in places or spaces in our home that feel good to us. And that's where we're getting most of our content these days.
Well, Tracy, thank you so much for coming on. We have to wrap this up. My guest is Tracy McLaughlin. Your book is called Real Estate Rescue. How long has your book been out?
It came out on May 12th.
Okay. How's it doing?
It's doing very well. I mean, you know, listen, it's not it wasn't optimal to be an author in the middle of COVID, but you know, I'm enjoying all the interviews for the book. I'm getting calls from around the country and trying to help people. So, yeah, it's the book is doing well. It's on Amazon and it's doing quite well, and I'm enjoying all this part of it as well. So. Well,
super. And quickly, do you have a website that you want to give out so people can come check you out?
Yes, it's TracyMcLaughlin.com.
Oh, easy enough. Tracy, thanks so much. This was a very enlightening conversation. I think I learned a couple of things from you, so I appreciate that.
Well, I enjoyed it. Very nice of you to have me on, and thank you so much.
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on the Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
Hi there, this is Stuart Epps, record producer. This is my story about Elton John, working with him in those early years, going back to 1967 at Dick James, all the amazing tours, those first recordings, going through to Rocket Records, and it's an amazing story about his incredible rise to stardom and my part in that. So look forward to taking you on that journey. So here we go. Yeah, and to order this great audio CD, please just email me at stuartepps@talk21.com. That's Stuart, Stuart, Epps, EPPS, at talk, TALK, 21 in figures.com. Stuart Epps at talk21.com. Email me and I'll give you all the details for buying this brilliant audio disc. Thank you. Bye.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. Go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com.
Tired of living in a culture of lies, fake news, and alternative facts? The Pro-Truth Pledge reverses the tide of lies by calling on politicians, and everyone else, to commit to truth-oriented behaviors. The pledge asks signees to commit to 12 behaviors that research in behavioral science shows lead to truthfulness, such as clarifying one's opinions and the facts, citing one's sources, and celebrating people who update their beliefs toward the truth. Private citizens who sign the pledge get the benefit of contributing to a more truth-oriented society. Public figures get more substantive rewards for signing the pledge in the form of positive media and public recognition. The pledge crowdsources the truth by asking volunteers to evaluate the statements of public figures who sign the pledge. Take the pledge, demand that your elected representatives do so, and encourage your friends to take it at protruthpledge.org.
Acclaimed author of Garden, Jane Yates brings you the first book in a new trilogy, Octopus Pirate, a story of a foundling who has unusual talents, such as the ability to communicate with octopuses. As a baby, he was washed up on an island off the Scottish mainland. An eccentric former nun who lives alone with cats brings him up. He joins a circus and narrowly escapes plots against him, flees to Cornwall, builds a replica pirate ship that's also an airship to travel back in time to fight real pirates. Get your copy today from Amazon, only 99 cents.
Are you an independent musician? How would you like to have your songs played on hundreds of radio stations just like the one you're listening to right now? Join MusicSubmit.com and we'll promote your music to radio stations and blogs in your genre. It's free to set up your account, and we guarantee your music will be considered for airplay by radio stations worldwide. Why not sign up today? It's free. MusicSubmit.com. Radio promotion for indie musicians.
But it's overexposure, and here we go again. We go round and round on this carousel. It looks like heaven but feels like hell. Like a captain who's lost the chart, we're going round and round and back to the start. Tried to write a new ending, but I was pretending. Once again I'm afflicted, just as predicted, and the cycle starts again. We go round and round on this carousel. It looks like heaven but feels like hell. Like a captain who's lost the chart, we're going round and round and back to the start. Round and round on this carousel, the same it all means nothing. Nothing without. Say what you wanna say. Do what you wanna do. It all means nothing. Nothing without you. You say what you wanna say. Do what you wanna do. It all means nothing. Nothing without you. To the mile, you've got to run, not walk. To give a sermon, you've got to preach.